My name is Robert. I'm 68 years old, a retired mechanic, and I live alone in a small suburban neighborhood. My wife passed away years ago, and my son, Daniel, lives just a few miles away with his wife and kids. Most evenings I spend time quietly at home, reading or watching TV, but one night, something happened that I will never forget. It was a Friday evening. Daniel had invited me over for dinner, saying, "Dad, the kids miss you. Come by and let's have a nice meal together." I gladly accepted. Family dinners with him were always warm and filled with laughter. By 7 p.m., I was sitting at his dining table, enjoying roast chicken and mashed potatoes, when suddenly my phone started to buzz in my pocket. I glanced at the screen. It was my neighbor, Mr. Collins. He was an older gentleman, too, living right across the street from me. Normally, he only called me if something serious was happening. I excused myself from the table and picked up. His voice was trembling. "Robert, are you home right now?" I frowned. "No, I'm at my son's house having dinner. Why do you ask?" There was silence for a moment. Then he whispered, "Then who is in your house right now?" My heart stopped. My hand shook so badly that I nearly dropped the phone. I quickly stepped into the hallway so Daniel and his wife wouldn't hear my panic. "What do you mean someone is in my house? Are you sure?" I asked. Mr. Collins sounded terrified. "I can see your living room lights turning on and off, and I swear, Robert, I saw a shadow move past the window just a moment ago." I froze in place. My mind raced. Was it a burglar or something worse? My house was supposed to be locked, and no one had a spare key except me and Daniel. My chest tightened as I realized that everything I had worked for, everything I owned, might be at risk. I rushed back to the dining table and told Daniel what Collins had said. He looked at me for a moment, then surprisingly burst out laughing. "Dad, you're telling me someone's inside your house right now?" His wife stared at him in disbelief, but he couldn't stop laughing. I felt a mix of fear and confusion. Why was he laughing when this was clearly serious? And then things got even stranger.
Daniel's laughter echoed through the dining room. I stood there, my hands shaking, staring at him in disbelief. "Daniel, this isn't funny. My neighbor just said someone is inside my house right now." He wiped a tear from his eye, still chuckling. "Dad, maybe Mr. Collins is just imagining things. You know how old he is. He's always nervous about noises in the neighborhood." But I wasn't convinced. Mr. Collins might be old, but he was sharp. He never called me unless something was serious. And the way his voice trembled, it wasn't a joke. My daughter-in-law, Sarah, spoke up. "Daniel, maybe your dad's right. If someone is in his house, we should check." Finally, Daniel sighed. All right, let's go see. But I bet it's nothing." We quickly got into his car and drove back to my house. The moment we pulled up, my stomach dropped. From the driveway, I could see the faint glow of my living room lights. I knew I had turned them off before leaving. Daniel stopped the car, his smile fading. Okay, maybe Collins wasn't lying after all. We sat there for a moment in silence, watching the house. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the curtain. My heart skipped a beat. Someone was inside. "Dad, stay here," Daniel said firmly. He grabbed his phone and whispered, "I'll call the police." But before he could dial, my phone buzzed again. It was Mr. Collins. I quickly answered. His voice was shaking even more now. "Robert, I just saw someone open your refrigerator. They're walking around like they own the place." My head spun. Who could it be? After what felt like forever, the police arrived. 2 officers, flashlights in hand. They carefully approached my front door, guns ready. Daniel and I watched from the driveway, my hands gripping the car door so tightly they hurt. One officer banged on the door. "Police! Anyone inside? Come out with your hands up!" At first, there was silence. Then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps moving toward the door. My chest tightened. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The doorknob turned, and the door creaked open. And standing there was a man I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, scruffy beard, wearing a dirty jacket. He looked just as shocked to see the police as we were to see him. The officers immediately restrained him. "Hands behind your back. You're under arrest." As they pulled him out of my house, I finally found my voice. "Who are you? Why are you in my home?" The man just stared at me, his eyes wide and glassy. Then he muttered, I thought this place was empty." "Empty?" My blood ran cold. Daniel whispered, "Dad, what if he wasn't just trying to steal? What if he was planning to stay there?" I shivered at the thought. My safe, quiet home invaded by a stranger. But as scary as it was, this was only the beginning. Because the next day, when I went back inside my house, I discovered something that made my blood freeze even more.
The stranger was taken away that night, and the police told me they would question him further. Daniel stayed with me for a while to make sure I was calm, but eventually I insisted he return home to his kids. I locked every door, double-checked every window, and sat in silence. My house no longer felt like mine. It felt violated. The next morning, with sunlight streaming through the curtains, I decided to inspect every corner of my home. Something inside me kept whispering that this man hadn't just broken in for a quick robbery. I started in the living room. Nothing seemed stolen. The TV, my old clock, even my small coin collection were untouched. But when I walked into the kitchen, my stomach tightened. The refrigerator door was slightly open. Inside, my leftovers were gone, and a half-empty milk carton sat on the counter. He had been living in my house, eating my food. I moved into the hallway closet, and that's when I noticed something chilling. A small sleeping bag was crumpled on the floor, along with an old blanket I hadn't seen in years. Next to it was a bag of chips, empty soda cans, and even a toothbrush. My hands trembled as I picked it up. This man hadn't just broken in for the night. He had been staying here. But that wasn't the worst part. When I checked the basement, the air felt heavy and damp. As I pulled the chain for the light, my heart nearly stopped. In the far corner, behind some boxes, I saw a little setup. Candles, notebooks, and scraps of paper with strange writing. One paper had my name written over and over, scrawled in messy handwriting. I felt dizzy. Why my name? I called Daniel immediately. "Son, you need to come here right now." When he arrived, I showed him everything. He frowned, trying to stay calm. "Dad, this is disturbing. He wasn't just squatting here. He was obsessed with you." We handed everything over to the police. Later that evening, one of the officers returned with an update. He told me the man's name was Michael, a drifter, who had been moving from house to house, secretly living in people's homes when they were away. But then, the officer lowered his voice. "Mr. Robert, there's something you should know. When we searched his belongings, we found old photographs of you, taken from outside your house." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Photographs? Of me?" The officer nodded. "It looks like he's been watching you for a while." Daniel gripped my shoulder tightly. His voice was firm. "Dad, you're staying at my place for now, until this is sorted out." I didn't argue. That night, as I packed a small bag to leave my home, I looked one last time at the quiet living room, a place that had always felt safe, now felt haunted. And though Michael was in custody, deep down I had the sickening feeling this wasn't over.
For the next few nights, I stayed at Daniel's house. The kids were happy to have me there, but I could see the worry in my son's eyes. Every time he checked the locks before bed, I knew he was thinking the same thing I was. Why me? Why was that man watching me? On the fourth day, Detective Harris from the local police department called. "Mr. Robert, we need you to come down to the station. We've uncovered something about Michael." My stomach tightened. Daniel insisted on coming with me. At the station, we sat across from the detective. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were more photographs. Grainy shots of me walking in my yard, checking my mail, even sitting on my porch reading a newspaper. "This man has been following you for months," Harris explained. "But that's not all. We found a journal in his backpack. You need to hear this." He opened the journal and read aloud. "Robert is the one. He reminds me of my father. My father left me, but Robert won't. He will understand me. He will let me stay." I felt a chill crawl down my spine. This stranger, he thought I was some kind of replacement father. Daniel slammed his hand on the table. "This is insane! He could have hurt my dad!" The detective nodded. "That's what we're trying to determine. He doesn't seem violent, but obsession can turn dangerous very quickly." That night back at Daniel's house, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how long Michael had been watching me before he dared to step inside. The thought of him sneaking around my home, watching me from the shadows, made my skin crawl. But then something happened that nearly broke me. At around 2 a.m., Daniel shook me awake. His face was pale. "Dad, look outside the window." I pulled back the curtain and froze. Across the street, leaning against a lamppost, was a figure. Even from a distance, I recognized the slouched posture, the dirty jacket. It was Michael. "But how?" I stammered. "I thought he was in jail." Daniel immediately called the police. Within minutes, patrol cars arrived, but when they searched the street, Michael was gone, as if he had vanished into thin air. The officers tried to reassure us, saying maybe it was a trick of the light, maybe just our imagination. But Daniel and I both knew what we saw. Michael was out, and somehow he had found me again. The following morning, the police confirmed my worst fear. Michael had been released on bail. My heart sank. I couldn't understand it. How could someone who broke into my house, lived there secretly, and stalked me be allowed to walk free so soon? Daniel was furious. "Dad, this system is broken. He could come back at any time." The detective advised me to install cameras around my house, and even suggested I consider staying with my son for a while longer. I agreed, but deep inside, I knew hiding wasn't a permanent solution. That house was my life, my memories. It was all I had left of my wife. I wasn't going to let some unstable stranger take that away. Later that week, I went back with Daniel to check on my home. The place looked normal from the outside, but when I stepped in, I noticed something on the kitchen table that froze me in my tracks. It was a note. Written in messy handwriting, it said, "I just wanted to be part of your family." My legs nearly gave out. Daniel grabbed the note, his hands trembling. "Dad, this means he was here, recently." We called the police again, but there were no signs of forced entry. That meant only one thing. Michael had found another way in, or worse, he still had access somehow. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every detail. Had I accidentally left a window unlocked, or had Michael made a copy of my key? The thought made my skin crawl. The next evening, as Daniel's family settled into bed, I sat in the living room staring out the window. The street was quiet, eerily quiet. But then, movement caught my eye. A shadow darted between two parked cars. I stood up, my chest pounding. It was him. I knew it. Instead of calling the police this time, Daniel whispered, "Let's catch him ourselves." I hesitated. "That's dangerous, son. He's unpredictable." But Daniel was determined. He grabbed a flashlight and motioned for me to follow. Together, we stepped outside, the cool night air biting against my skin. We creeped toward the street. The beam of the flashlight swept across the pavement, the bushes, the cars. At first, nothing. Then behind my mailbox, we saw him, Michael. He was crouched low, his eyes wild, staring at us like a trapped animal. I froze. My voice cracked as I said, "Michael, what do you want from me?" For a moment he didn't answer. Then slowly he stood up, his lips trembling. "I just wanted to be part of your family." Daniel tightened his grip on the flashlight, ready to defend us if needed. "You need help, not my father. Stay away from him." But Michael shook his head violently. "No, he understands me. He's not like the others. He won't send me away." The intensity in his eyes made my stomach twist. At that moment, I realized this wasn't just an obsession. To him, this was reality. He truly believed I was the father he had lost. Before things could escalate further, flashing blue lights filled the street. The police had arrived. Mr. Collins must have called them after spotting the commotion. Michael's face contorted with anger and fear. "Don't let them take me away, Dad!" he screamed, pointing at me. But before I could respond, the officers tackled him to the ground. His screams echoed in the night, a haunting sound that I will never forget. As they dragged him away in handcuffs, he kept shouting the same words over and over. "You're my father! You're my father!"
For a few weeks after Michael's second arrest, life slowly began to settle down. I tried to convince myself that it was over, that he would finally get the psychiatric help he clearly needed. Daniel kept checking on me, and I stayed mostly at his house, though I sometimes returned to my own during the day to tend the garden and collect my mail. But peace didn't last. One morning, Detective Harris called again. His tone was heavy. "Mr. Robert, I need to inform you. Michael escaped custody during a hospital transfer last night." My blood ran cold. "Escaped? How?" Harris sighed. "They had him in a mental health evaluation unit. He slipped away. We have officers searching, but we want you to stay somewhere safe." I hung up the phone, my hands trembling. The nightmare wasn't over. It was beginning again. That evening, Daniel insisted I sleep at his place. He installed extra locks, even a small camera at the front door. "Don't worry, Dad. If he shows up, we'll know." Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Michael was already near, watching, waiting. 2 nights later, around 1 a.m., the doorbell rang. The sound was sharp, slicing through the silence. Daniel jolted awake, rushing to the front hallway. He checked the camera feed on his phone. No one was there. "Probably kids messing around," Daniel muttered, though his voice didn't sound convinced. But the next morning, something more unsettling appeared. On Daniel's porch was a small box wrapped in brown paper. There was no label, no address. Cautiously, he opened it. Inside was a single photograph, an old picture of me and my late wife, taken over 30 years ago. My throat tightened. That photo had been in my bedroom drawer. Michael had been inside my house again. I felt my knees weaken. "He's playing with us, Daniel. He wants us scared." That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside made me jump. Around 3 a.m. I got up for a glass of water. As I passed the living room window, something caught my eye. A figure, standing across the street, motionless, staring straight at the house. It was him. But this time he wasn't hiding. He wanted me to see him. I whispered, "Daniel, he's here." My son rushed to the window, but by then, the figure was gone, just like before, disappearing into the night. Daniel clenched his fists. "We can't keep living like this, Dad. Michael is obsessed with you, and until he's caught, we'll never be safe." I nodded, my chest heavy with dread. Michael was no longer just a stalker. He was sending a message, and deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before his obsession turned violent.
After that night, Daniel and I lived in constant tension. Every evening we double-checked the locks, kept the lights on, and waited for Michael to make his next move. I felt like a prisoner, not in my own home, but in fear. Then, 3 nights later, something happened that proved Michael wasn't just trying to scare us. He was getting bolder. At around midnight, the sound of shattering glass whipped through the silence. Daniel jumped out of bed, grabbing the baseball bat he kept near the nightstand. "Stay here, Dad," he whispered sharply, rushing toward the kitchen. But I followed, my heart racing. The window above the sink was smashed. Cold air rushed in, and on the floor were footprints. Wet, muddy prints leading straight into the living room. He was inside. Daniel raised the bat, his voice firm. "Michael, you need to leave right now." From the shadows, we heard heavy breathing. Then a voice, shaky, desperate. "I'm not leaving. This is my home now. My dad lives here." I felt sick to my stomach. He was talking about me. Before we could react, Michael stepped into the dim light. His eyes were wild, and in his hand he held something that made my blood freeze. A kitchen knife. Daniel positioned himself between us. "You're not touching him, Michael. Put the knife down." Michael's voice cracked, like a child begging a parent. "He's my father. He knows me. You don't understand. He belongs to me." My knees nearly gave out. I forced myself to speak, though my voice shook. "Michael, listen to me. I am not your father, but you need help, real help. This isn't the way." For a moment, I thought he might listen. His hand trembled, the knife shaking. His eyes filled with tears. But then in an instant, his face hardened, and he took a step forward. Daniel tightened his grip on the bat. "Dad, run!" Just then, blinding red and blue lights flashed outside. Police sirens wailed. Mr. Collins, my loyal neighbor, had seen the break-in and called for help. The front door burst open, and officers stormed in. "Drop the knife!" one shouted. Michael screamed, his voice raw and broken. "He's my father!" But surrounded and outnumbered, he finally dropped the weapon. The officers restrained him, dragging him out as he cried and thrashed. I stood frozen, my legs weak. Daniel wrapped his arm around me, whispering, "It's over, Dad. You're safe now." But deep down, I wasn't sure. Because as they pulled Michael into the squad car, he locked eyes with me and whispered something only I could hear. "I'll be back. You can't send me away forever. Dad." His words sent a chill down my spine. And as the car disappeared into the night, I realized this nightmare wasn't just about a break-in. It was about something far darker, an obsession that might never end.
After Michael's arrest that night, Daniel and I both tried to breathe a sigh of relief. The officers assured us that this time he would be placed in a secure psychiatric facility rather than a regular jail. They told me I could finally sleep without fear. But could I? For days, even weeks, I jumped at every sound. The creak of a floorboard, the rustle of wind outside the window, the low hum of a passing car. Michael's words replayed in my mind. "I'll be back. You can't send me away forever, Dad." And yet, life had to continue. Slowly, I started returning to my house during the day. The yard was overgrown, the mailbox overflowing, the air inside stale. It didn't feel like home anymore, but I wasn't ready to abandon it either. My wife's memories were in those walls, and I couldn't let them go. One afternoon, while cleaning, I found something that made me pause. In the basement, tucked behind some boxes, was another notebook. My heart pounded as I opened it. Inside were messy sketches of me and my family, like a child's drawings. Stick figures labeled Dad and me. I felt both pity and horror. This man wasn't just obsessed, he was broken, a lost soul desperately trying to replace something he had lost long ago. I gave the notebook to Detective Harris. He shook his head, sighing deeply. "Mr. Robert, I've seen many cases, but Michael, he's dangerous because he truly believes his delusion. We'll do everything we can to keep him away from you." Months passed. I lived carefully. Locks, cameras, lights. Daniel visited often, and slowly I began to feel safer. Then, one crisp autumn evening, I received a letter in the mail. There was no return address. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, written in the same jagged handwriting as before, were just 3 words. "Happy birthday, Dad." I nearly collapsed. How had he gotten this to me? Was he still watching? I gave the letter to the police, and though they promised to investigate, they admitted it could take time. That night, as I sat by the window staring into the dark, I realized something important. I could not let Michael control my life anymore. Fear had stolen enough from me. My peace, my sleep, my home. I would not let him steal the rest of my years. I decided to sell the house. It was the hardest choice I ever made, but it was the only way to truly close this chapter. Daniel helped me move into a smaller home closer to his family. It wasn't the same, but it was safe. On the last night in my old house, I walked through each room one final time. The living room where my wife and I had laughed, the kitchen where I had eaten countless meals, the bedroom where I had dreamed and grieved, and the basement where Michael's shadow had lingered. I whispered, "Goodbye." As I closed the door behind me, I felt a strange mix of sorrow and relief. Michael may never stop believing I was his father. He may always carry that obsession in whatever cell or hospital they placed him, but I knew one thing for sure. He would never again walk these halls, never again invade this home. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free.